Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, you see, I knew that would happen with only one winner of a prize in the room and everybody else let's not say loser, but a non-winner of the prize. I sensed that there would be that kind of response at this stage, not making it easy for me to start off. Particularly as when I came in the room, I certainly wasn't expecting to hear Hitler, Machiavelli and bastards. But that's all okay. That's what you get on level -2. But I know, irrespective of how this is for you, I know I'm going to enjoy myself because before coming up here, the sound man put the microphone on me and said, "Don't worry, you don't have to do anything. As soon as you start talking, I'll turn you on." Talk amongst yourselves. But it is difficult to know how to start a presentation, isn't it, really? Public speaking. Poof. Who likes it? No. I thought, how should I start? And I was reminded of a recent Home Secretary of ours who's currently doing a different job for a little bit longer. And she was on a visit to Dartmoor Jail, and as her car was crossing the moor, she got a call from the governor who asked her if she'd mind saying a few words when she arrived. Now, amazingly for a politician, this threw her. She wasn't expecting to speak. She finished the call and thought, how should I begin? Gentlemen? Not really. Fellow criminals? When she arrived, she stood up and she said, "I'm glad so many of you could make it." But I am glad so many of you have made it today, and I looked through the agenda and wished I could have come from the beginning. So many very interesting topics, really important stuff covered. And what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about the Fourth Industrial Revolution, how that may play out in the general and also in the specific for some of the instances, some of the situations you may have found yourself in, you may find yourself in. And then, most excitingly, we'll have a few questions on anything you like. Almost. And I think for me, it's all about the interplay of inclusion and innovation, talent and technology. If we can get it right, and that's a big if we can get it right, we can have such a bright future. But that is the if. I've been lucky enough in Parliament to be involved in reports on digital skills, artificial intelligence, social mobility, intergenerational fairness. I did a report off my own back on blockchain. Do rush up to me afterwards to talk to me about that. I'm sure that's really going to make you miss your trains. But the reason why I'm interested in this area is not so much for the technology, though that does interest me. And I've been interested in technology since I had a ZX Spectrum when I was 12 years old. Who here had a ZX Spectrum? Yep. Who here had a Commodore 64? Yeah, I don't know if this means that we've got a young audience or a non-computing audience, but we'll find out as we progress. But I'm slightly interested in the technology, but I'm mainly interested in for what it can do for us, what problems it can solve, how it can help, how it can enable, how it can empower. That sense of our organisations, our cities, our communities, our countries, made up of talent augmented, not replaced, talent augmented via technology. But the difficulty is the narrative goes something like this. The bots are coming, our jobs are going, we're all off to hell, and no one even knows if we have a handcart. Constant numbers of reports, 35% of jobs in danger of automation, 23% of jobs, 43%, all interesting of themselves. But in reality, I think the positive question we should ask, or the positive thought we should have, is the reality that all jobs will be affected by technology. And that of itself is not necessarily a bad thing. There'll be frictional elements, of course, but of itself, it's not necessarily a bad thing if we think about it in terms of the totality. I think there are a number of concepts that it's worth us considering. Firstly, the everythingness of this. If you look at all of the constituent, and Lottie seems to be going to sleep already. If any of you want to follow her example, there's a recline feature on your chairs. Do feel free. The everythingness. If you consider any element of the fourth industrial revolution, AI, Internet of Things, machine learning, nanotechnology, any of them have the potential to be extraordinarily powerful, extraordinarily disruptive. When you put them all together and the pace at which they're driving, you have something which is the everythingness and something which is fundamentally different to the three industrial revolutions that have gone before. The first industrial revolution took over a century to take hold. We're already in the midst of 4IR, as I'm sure many of you are already grappling with. But alongside that, I think it's important to consider also that everything and nothing changes. Obvious example, we've never taken more photos, yet where's Kodak? We've never been more connected, and yet look at the worrying rise in populism, nationalism, retreatism. We've never been more connected, and yet look at the figures and the reality on loneliness and isolation. We've never been more connected, yet look at what's happening in terms of mental illness, not least with our young people. Everything and nothing changes. I think we need to grip the reality of coming at this not with rose-tinted Google Glass, but equally not with that narrative of fear. I'll take you through a little bit of the AI journey that I've been on to help with that. We really don't need to have a narrative of fear and retreatism from this stuff. When we started the AI committee a couple of years ago, you can imagine my relief at the first meeting when I realised that we were actually talking about artificial intelligence rather than artificial insemination. Though that would have made an interesting year inquiry as well. And the first reason not to be fearful of this stuff is, of itself, it's not new. And even if we consider the pace which I've talked about and that massive everythingness coming at us, we are still decades away from general purpose artificial intelligence. So at the moment, we need to deploy everything that we have here and here, because again, everything and nothing's changed. We're still human, we're still prime, we still have the same heads and hearts. We need to deploy that, but we don't need to have that sense, bless you. You see, we're all human. It wasn't a robotic sneeze, I don't think. We don't need to approach it in terms of fear. It's been around a long time. In 1956 in the United States, 12 professors from Dartmouth were sent away for their summer vacation to, quote, solve the problem of artificial intelligence. We then moved forward with IBM's Deep Blue, with AlphaGo, and all of this kind of stuff. There's been a journey, a long journey along this path. And what's interesting is, as soon as stuff becomes mainstream and integrated, be it in our mobile phone, be it in our cars, we cease to see it as artificial intelligence or something of this sense to be feared. But actually, it's all part of a narrative, it's all part of a journey, and we need to have that sense of understanding that, but not being in any sense afraid of it. There are almost as many definitions of AI that could have occupied the whole year of our inquiry. But really what we wanted to get to is that sense of how should we approach it, be we putting advice to government, putting advice to organisations. And the key at the heart of all of it is to have that sense of an ethical approach to artificial intelligence. Again, human first, human leading, human driving on this technology. Now, at one sense, you may say that's quite naive. How do you have an ethical approach? Because we know how to go about that, to get more people engaged, to have that public debate. If we look at, say, for example, reproductive technologies, now imagine you couldn't get something more science fiction than that, making humans in a test tube. And yet, why was that a success? It was a success because it was gone about in an ethical way. A public debate was really got underway, led by Baroness Warnock, a tremendous success. Think about perhaps where we are currently with AI, perhaps even more so, think about where we are with GM foods. There hasn't been that ethical approach and that connection and that sense of enabling people to get into the public space and think about all of this. So what might this mean for you in terms of AI and machine learning? Phenomenal opportunities at every stage of the recruitment process, from the first touch point with a potential candidate, what it could do in terms of the candidate experience, the connection, every beat point along that journey, right the way through the whole of the HR experience. But again, how to get into this without having fear, without having skepticism. I think the key is to pick a discrete part of the journey. And it almost doesn't matter which part of the journey it is, but pick a discrete part, get some good research in terms of what's out there, and experiment and deploy that particular application. De-risks it, cost of experimentation is massively reduced, and it enables people again to have that comfort and that confidence to operate with this stuff, and it ceases to become mystical, magical, or terrifying, and it just becomes part of that journey. It's that sense of having one beat point within it to start off, I think, absolutely key. But as you all know, what's at the heart of all this is data. So, again, back to the human part of it, issues of trust, trustworthiness, issues of privacy are far more significant and need to be far more prime than even before you start asking the questions of what data do you have, what do you want to do with it, what form's it in, what part of the organisation is it in. Let's face it, it would be wrong for me to go past this point without reminding us all of the fun that started last year, if not a little before, and continues. 4 letters which cause excitement in any room. G, D, PR. But important, how do we go about all this stuff? Whose data is it? What form's it in? What do we want to do with it? But it's absolutely critical, because without that and without resolving all these issues, you don't have anything in terms of the potential of all of the elements of 4IR. When we were doing the report, there was a lot about NHS data. But what is NHS data? Whose data is it? What form's it in? And it's extraordinary how the sense of we're prepared to give away data for convenience or for stuff that we don't really need, and by the time it arrives, we've forgotten we've even ordered it. Though I did like the story yesterday of Amazon who delivered someone some bubble wrap and wrapped it in 10 meters of brown paper. It's important. We give our data away at that point, but when it comes to things around mobility, health, things that really matter within organisations as well as within societies, we're far less comfortable, far more squeamish. And that need, again, to connect much more with this and have that engagement to understand how to deal with data and how to make the best from it in whatever field that's in. Bias. So much over the last few years has been around unconscious bias, and quite right too. But let's be honest, there's still plenty of conscious bias out there. And bias in the data, and thus into the algorithms, is hardly surprising, because what is it based upon? Which data sets have been used? How have they been deployed? Soap dispensers in the United States, automatic, but will not dispense soap to a black hand. Recruitment tools that do not ever select a female candidate. All of this is so obvious. And again, I don't think we should have a sense of disappointment with that. I think we should have a sense of positivity about it, because it demonstrates that we have the ability to control and to lead on this stuff, because those two examples are not massively complicated or beyond our scope of comprehension. They demonstrate that at its heart, the human qualities are what we need, and where this stuff can go wrong is often incredibly simple and straightforward. Talent. That's what we're all about. That's why we're here. But what do we need to have talent skilled up to be able to operate in the fourth industrial revolution, and with all the options that are out there, and for the length of time that they may stay with any particular organisation? We saw the Auger report on further and higher education published a couple of weeks ago. Probably one of the greatest things this country could do, which would benefit all of us in this room and beyond, is to have parity of esteem between further and higher education. What are universities for? What role can they play with what is now required for our people coming into organisations? That whole sense of lifelong learning. It's been said so much, but what do we have in our organisations, in our institutions, which actually delivers on that? The 100-year life. We truly are now going to need to be constantly changing, constantly updating, constantly learning. Again, we shouldn't feel disheartened by that. What a great opportunity if the structures are in place both within organisations, within companies, within our education system, within our government, to enable that, to constantly have that sense of connecting with new possibilities. That's a way to really engage and have a sense of truly lifelong learning, which, in honesty, we've never had in this country. To the whole talent journey, right from the first point of attraction, connection, taking people through the process, looking at everything around EVP, looking at the experience, looking at the whole sense of what it is in the battle for talent. And it is a battle for talent now, because the options are completely out there. It's not about salary, when people may choose to join an organisation for very little, if any, salary, and go into part of the equity of startups. If we look at what's happening in fintech, it is truly a battle for talent. But again, we know everything that we need to make a success of it, because it's not new stuff we need. It's the sense of understanding what our brand is, what's our offer, what's our differentiator, and how do we make that connective? How do we make it sticky from the first initial point to have people coming along that journey? Truly, I believe that diversity will have its highest moments now and as we move forward through this, because it's absolutely essential. Organisations need to become diverse or they'll die. And that may be a slow, painful death. It may be a quick, overnight death. But truth, they will die. Because if you don't have that diversity, the ability to engage and really max out on all the opportunities of technology will not be there. And whatever role you're in, there's not a separate world of diversity in the same way there isn't a separate world of technology. Technology is too important to leave to the technologists. Whatever role you're all in, you need to have an understanding and a grip on it and bring in diverse talent. Look in different places, look in different ways, look with different methods, look with different bits of technology to identify that talent in whatever form it may be in, because it can only be that connection of diverse talent augmented through the technology which will enable organisations to really flourish. And the kit is there. Augmented analytics, to have in your hand or on your laptop what you need just instantly there. Not replacing you, but enabling you to really then brain it. Predictive analytics, even more so, to understand where the talent is, to be given factors which will tell you 3 reasons why that particular talent may not be coming to join your organisation. Or indeed, to tell you that that talent is looking to leave your organisation and to give you the descriptors as to why. Stuff we've never been able to have, to be on the front foot rather than all too often walking backwards into the future on this stuff. I think the potential through the whole recruitment, onboard and HR journey through predictive analytics particularly is a tremendous, tremendous opportunity. And it'll be that combination of diverse talent, technology, in an inclusive environment, in an inclusive culture. Because there's precious little point doing all of this if when people arrive, and indeed when the technology is put in place, if it's not an inclusive environment, it just won't work. And perhaps one of the greatest KPIs, if you will, or illustrators of how inclusive the culture in the organisation is when somebody feels absolutely comfortable, absolutely confident that they're there and there's a bot at the next station next to them, and that's just fine. And they're all part of the game. They're all part of what they're engaged with. They're all part of the process, because it's just a different kind of intelligence in the whole symphony of all intelligences. We need to be able to look at stuff in a different way to get the real grip on this. It is going to be incredibly disruptive. That's just fine, as long as we understand where the disruption will come and we understand the friction points and we put stuff in place to smooth those out as much as we possibly can. In terms of looking at stuff in a different way, I'd just like to show you this quick film, not because it has anything to do with sport, but just have a look at this in terms of thinking and representing stuff in a completely different way. Let's show the film.
Rolling stones in the rap game, not bragging. Lips bigger than Jagger, not sagging. Spell it backwards, I'ma leave it at that. That ain't got nothing to do with rap. Get up.
Just like that.
Get up.
Just like that.
Get up.
Just like that.
Get up.
Just like that. I know this is a shock.
Screaming gangster 20 years later. Of course, endorsed while consciousness faded. New generations believe in them fables. Gangster boogie on 2 turntables. Thank you for letting us be ourselves. So don't mind me if I repeat myself. These simple lines be good for your health. To keep them time rhymes on the shelf. Live love life like you just don't care. 5,000 never scared. Rain and noise is the moment they feared. Get up, still a beautiful idea.
Just 90 seconds. So I don't show it to you because it's about sport. I just show it to you because the reason why we made that is to enable people to look at something in a different way. That's what we have to do with everything around the 4th Industrial Revolution. It's what we have to do, everything to do with talent and diversity and inclusion, to absolutely take ourselves out of our shoes and really immerse ourselves in the perspective of the other, whoever that may be. I don't really like giving advice, but I'll just give one piece of advice. Never, ever, ever speak at a primary school. And I'll tell you for why. We had a great education programme at London 2012 called Get Set. It's fabulous. Going around talking to schools about Paralympics, Olympics, Olympic values, Paralympians, all that. It's fabulous. I went to a school in a London borough that shall remain nameless for reasons which will become apparent. I was crossing the playground. I heard a group of kids go, "Who's that? Who's that?" I heard the teacher go, "It's Chris Holmes." A bunch of kids go, "It's Chris Holmes." Unfortunately, a much larger group of kids go, "It's Chris Hoy." All of which would have been okay had it not been when we got to questions. A little chap put his hand up and he says, "Oi, mister, where does your dog go when you're on your bike?" Great question. No idea what it tells us this afternoon. But I'll leave you with this. I think this is the truth of it. The fourth industrial revolution offers us such tools for intelligence. In considering, in investigating, in deploying them, we should never suspend our own intelligence and always continue to ask the questions that we always should ask. And the solutions will always be in everything that it is to be human, and in leadership, collaboration, connection, culture, and then truly we could have the fabulously augmented human and fabulously augmented recruitment pathway and fabulously augmented organisations to make a tremendous success of the future. Thank you very much.